Now I want to talk for a few minutes about club design because it can really affect your performance out on the golf course. There's one factor you really need to understand about choosing those wedges, and that's the bounce on the club. Now the bounce on the club I've talked about before, but I want to really go into it for a minute here, and that is the back part of the golf club, how thick it is, because it's going to determine how deeply the club can dig into the ground. The more bounce the club has, the less it will dig. Now this particular club has very little bounce, so when I turn it open, it's still barely sitting above my hand there, barely above the ground, if you will. So for hard-packed ground situations, this is perfect. The club can slide right underneath it without any problem. This is an entirely different situation, however. This area is much bigger and sharper, so it hangs down a little bit more, which means that as I turn the club open, this part is higher up into the air. Now, under hard-packed ground conditions with this club, you're dead if you try to turn it open, because it's going to be putting that leading edge up into the air a little bit higher, and of course, as you come along, that leading edge is going to hit the middle of the ball. So this type of situation, this club is not going to want to dig very much at all. Now this club is perfect for fluffy ground situations and fluffy sand. So when there's a lot of grass, or again the sand is very thick or new, this is a perfect one for that situation. You know, when I went to college, we played at Bel Air Country Club, which is one of the top clubs in the country, and it's filled with very deep bunkers next to the green and very, very heavy sand. Well, my senior year in college, I got on a hot streak out of the sand like crazy, and I had no problem whatsoever. Well, as I turned pro and played for a couple of years, I ended up with a new sand wedge that looked nice, and it was nice from the fairway, but my bunker play took a little bit of a dip where I wasn't quite as good. In fact, I even left a few in the sand, something I never had done before. Well, with a little spring cleaning one day, I broke out my college sand wedge, and though the grooves were all worn out flat, I laid the club down and I said, wow, look at the bounce on that. I can't believe how much there is on the back part of the club. I took it out that afternoon, and after about 3 or 4 shots out of the sand, I felt like my old self again, where I could go ahead and pick a spot and just land it right on there with no problem. Don't underestimate this factor. It is huge in being able to see whether you can do your best out on the golf course. Now again, there's no right or wrong answer here. You have to look at the conditions that you play under. If you have hard-packed ground, bunkers that don't have a lot of sand in them, then you don't want to have a lot of bounce. If you have fluffy sand, thick sand, this is absolutely huge to have enough bounce on the club. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Maybe some of that bunker play, if you've been struggling, isn't you after all. It might be your equipment. Now let's go back out to the golf course and see what we might need to do to alter our swing just a little bit to make our best contact.